Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Well, a lot of people saw the Facebook post that I did today. Jussie Smollett has been released from jail pending appeal. Jussie Smollett, we know he was sentenced to 30 months probation. The first 150 days he would do in Cook County Jail. And his attorneys worked on this case to get him free from jail so he could be free while he appeals the sentence. Okay, so I watched it live today, this evening, channel ABC channel 7 out of Chicago. I watched it live. They had a camera right outside of the jail. I also saw the interview that Jussie Smollett's attorneys did with the media. So we're going to try to share some of that with you on today's show. But the main story that I want to get to, and I was going to talk about this before this story broke with Jussie Smollett, is some of you may have seen the articles that I posted about a mock slave auction at a K-8 school in North Carolina. Now, this happened at J.S. Waters School in Goldston, North Carolina. J.S. Waters School in Goldston, North Carolina. And a lot of these stories are from Monday, March 14th, 2022. We know that there was a school board meeting on Monday, March 14th also. And we're going to talk about this on today's show. There's been protests around this. This story has gone national. And there was a good article. So there was one article from the newsobserver.com, also ABC Channel 11 out of North Carolina has a good article on this as well. But there's an interesting article from blackamericaweb.com. And, you know, on yesterday's show, we talked about the anti-critical race theory law that Governor Tate Reeves just signed into law in Mississippi, okay, of all places, Mississippi, that had the highest number of lynchings out of any state in the Union from 1882 to 1968. So what's very interesting here is, so we talked about the anti-critical race theory law that Governor Tate Reeves just signed into law on Monday, March 14th. And that law applies to all schools in the state of Mississippi, okay, including colleges and universities. And it states that they cannot teach that one race is superior to the other race. And I'll find the exact language here. And it applies to colleges, universities, K through 12, public, private schools, the like. But when we look at this here in North Carolina, this article from blackamericaweb.com, North Carolina school board addresses mock slave auction as anti-critical race folks are silent. North Carolina school addresses mock slave auction as anti-critical race theory folks are silent. So this causes me to ask questions. You have this mock slave auction taking place. There was in North Carolina, there was a school board meeting that took place on Monday, March 14th. We're going to share some of what happened at the press conference outside of the school board meeting. But where are all the anti-critical race theory protesters? who say that when you teach certain things about history and slavery, things like this, it makes white children feel guilty and it makes white children feel sad, and they're concerned about white children's feelings. But you have African American children here, and biracial children whose feelings are hurt by a mock slave auction, and the anti-critical race theory people are silent. The article from blackamericaweb.com asks, where are all these concerned legislators when mock slavery auctions are happening in the classroom? And that's a very, very good question. What I haven't heard from any of them. All the anti-critical race theory people they have on Fox News, all the one Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi, but all the ones that push these idiotic bills, they're silent when things like this happen. But it gets even better than that. Now, a couple of weeks ago, it was about 3 weeks ago now, there was a segment from the Readout with Joanne Reed that I shared, and it talked about, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up. It talked about back in 2018 how it was an article from I think the Washington Examiner it was, and it dealt with how before all this backlash around critical race theory, because critical race theory has been around going back to, it started in the late 1960s. It started being formulated in the late 1960s. But before that, in 2018, there was this issue with the book To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, To Kill a Mockingbird. And this one right here, Mockingbird. I have thousands of articles and graphics and all this stuff bookmarked. So I had to go into my files to find this. But take a look at this right here. Now, Joanne Reed talked about this. She was dealing with a story about critical race theory. Back in 2018, you had African-American parents and students who were complaining about the book To Kill a Mockingbird and the excessive usage of the N-word. They wanted the book removed from, it was a high school, I think. They wanted the book removed. The name of this article here, banning books, especially To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in the name of political correctness, is absurd. Now, this is before the anti-critical race theory nuts started writing these laws. When African-American children were talking about books that made them feel bad and called them the N-word, like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, they were basically told by conservatives, you just have to suck it up. Okay. But when it's white children who conservatives will say will feel bad by different aspects of history. I haven't heard any white children say they feel bad, but white parents are saying this, and white conservatives, now all of a sudden they want to ban all these books. But when there's African-American children talking about being hurt, they told them they had to suck it up. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Let's to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. All right, stand by, everybody. Back from break in 4 minutes. Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. I had to get ready for this next segment because I'm running behind schedule. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 3 minutes. How's everybody doing? Who still needs to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, online history classes? It's ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement of Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Bathroom break in 2 minutes. Stand by.
On the African History Network show, we deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do a piece what it doesn't know. We have it all on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, and we are live. Call-in numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. We're also going to talk about the story that broke today as well. Jussie Smollett has been released from jail. I watched it live on ABC Channel 7 out of Chicago. I saw the interview that his attorneys did as well. So we're going to try to share some of that with you also. I also watched we're going to clip one here in just a second, Shakita. Clip number one and that is from CBS Channel 17 out of North Carolina. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris and also Attorney General Merrick Garland held a press conference, and they were dealing with the rash of bomb threats against HBCUs. I watched it on the White House's YouTube channel, because in the Black News Channel had a little bit of coverage on it, but I watched the whole thing live on the White House's YouTube channel because I subscribe to their YouTube channel. And I encourage people to subscribe to the White House's YouTube channel. It's White House on YouTube. They have a ton of information there. A lot of press conferences, things like this, they show them live. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. If I have time, we'll talk about this today. If not, definitely tomorrow. Vice President Harris boosts HBCU funding following bomb threats. Now, not a lot of the black trolls on social media probably won't cover this because they don't cover real news. Okay, they don't deal with stuff like this, but we do on this show. We deal with substance. At least 36 HBCUs have faced bomb threats in recent months. This is from ABC News, March 16th, 2022. There's also, I think Black America Web has an article about this or something as well. But I watched it live today. So We'll try to squeeze this in as well. Okay, I want to go back to the our lead story dealing with the mock slave auction out of North Carolina. This took place at J.S. Waters School in March of 2022, which is in Goldston, North Carolina. Goldston, North Carolina. And if we go back very quickly here to this article from blackamericaweb.com, then I want to look at the one from newsobserver.com. Okay. Because that's like the main article that has the one from News Observer is from Tuesday, March 15th. And it has updated information. And that article came out after the Monday school board meeting. Okay. And what took place at the school board meeting was very important. Well, if we go back to what I was talking about, To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The Joanne Reed talked about this on the readout. Okay. And that was from I forgot the date that was from. That was from sometime in February, I think it was. February 2022. But this was an article from the Washington Examiner. Banning books, especially To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, in the name of political correctness is absurd. So this was an opinion piece by Nicole Russell. White conservatives, when African Americans were talking about books that dehumanized us, that were used in school, they told us we had to get over it. We needed to have thicker skins, stop being so sensitive, things like this. But when it's white children, or when white parents say that stories about Dr. King and Ruby Bridges and the civil rights movement and slavery could hurt white children's feelings, now they want to ban books. Revisiting or erasing history, even artistic interpretations of time periods, does a grave disservice to the very students whose feelings they are trying to protect. This is what white conservatives were saying in 2018 before they were attacking critical race theory. Okay. Now, when you have something like a mock slave auction of African American students done at a school, those same white conservatives, those anti-critical race theory people are silent. So this article from blackamericaweb.com says, here question: where are all of the anti-critical race theory warriors when school lessons make black students uncomfortable? When school lessons make black students uncomfortable, because that's what all of this anti-CRT hoopla is supposed to be about, right? So they go through and they talk about the story from the News and Observer. According to the News and Observer, a mock slave auction recently took place at J.S. Waters School in Goldston, North Carolina. During the lesson, black students were reportedly sold by white students, presumably to demonstrate what went on during the transatlantic slave trade. Now, did they have any mock slave uprisings? I'm just curious. Did they have any mock slave uprisings? And the slaves, why don't you do a reenactment of the Haitian Revolution? That happened during slavery also. It was in Haiti, but I mean, I'm just curious. These are just questions I would ask, so these are just questions I would ask. So, hey, but so presumably to demonstrate what went on during the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, but why though? While Black history in America is often whitewashed and sanitized for Caucasian consumption, one fact is so universally recognized as indisputable: Black people, African people, were slaves and white people owned them. No one needs a slavery show and tale to be educated on that, even though many people don't understand the history of slavery, but still, you don't have to do slave reenactments. Now, superintendent is the superintendent of the school system, their Chatham County school system, is Dr. Anthony Jackson. He's an African American man. He said, actions such as these, they do not reflect who we are as a school system. He issued an apology also on Monday, March 14th. He issued an apology and an official statement. He said, and I say unapologetically, will not be tolerated in the school system, will not be tolerated in the school system. Okay. So, Shakita, let's do this. Let's go to clip number one. This is from CBS Channel 17 out of North Carolina.
Experienced a mock slave auction at school.
CBS 17's Galat Malaman is live in Chatham County, where that incident is prompting change. So, Galat, tell us what happened.
Ron and Angela, a plan was put in place at the board meeting here tonight, and an apology was issued. But before that could happen, students and parents shared their stories of racism in the district. A sea of support calling for change.
Will not tolerate atrocious acts.
After Ashley Palmer says her black son's classmates held a slave auction at JS Water School in Goldston.
This is not diversity and inclusion. This is not equity. This is racism and deserves to be treated as such.
About 100 people showed support for the 8th graders family at a rally organized by Chatham Organizing for Racial Equity and inside the school board meeting.
Which side of history will you be on?
The community called on the board to put tangible changes in place.
Let this student and other students who suffered similar indignities be agents of change.
The mother of another student says her child was bullied during the slave auction.
I'm a mother who just had to explain to my son why being auctioned as a slave is unacceptable. This moment in my son's early life has already made him question playing the sport he loves with his friends.
Superintendent Dr. Anthony Jackson laid out a plan he says will begin the healing process and ensure this never happens.
An apology to every single student who has ever felt unsafe while in our care, to every student who has ever felt demeaned, disrespected, or marginalized.
The board unanimously approved a plan that includes revisions to the Student Code of Conduct, staff training, and building relationships with local community agencies, including those who spoke Monday night.
No child should face abuse by their peers and staff.
On social media tonight, Palmer wrote, "My emotion tonight is simply grateful." We also asked the district for any punishments that students who might have been involved with this incident faced. They said they're not giving any information beyond what the superintendent said here tonight. Live in Chatham County, Galat Malaman, CBS 17 News.
All right, Galat, thank you for that live report.
Okay, pause right there. Thank you, Shakita, who's celebrating her birthday as well. She's probably going to celebrate the whole month. All right. Happy birthday, Shakita. She turned 26 a few days ago. So the school board meeting, we're coming up on a break. We're going to talk about the school board meeting. You just heard some excerpt of what happened there. This is a good article from the News and Observer out of North Carolina. An apology, Chatham District updates policies after mock slave auction at North Carolina school. Now, some people are saying that the school district didn't go enough, didn't go far enough. We'll talk about this on the other side of the break. Also, we'll talk about Jussie Smollett, and we're going to try to squeeze in this story about Vice President Kamala Harris as well. What happened today, the press conference she did dealing with increased funding for HBCUs, dealing with combating the bomb threats, the fake bomb threats against HBCUs. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Okay, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. And we're celebrating our 12th year anniversary of broadcasting the African History Network show as well. So I first started broadcasting the show March 10th, 2010. Okay, stand by. You can register for the online class I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Do thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. It's a 10-week online class that I teach. Bathroom break in 2 minutes.
The Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Hey, I want to remind you to register for the 10-week online class I teach on Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. It's very interactive. So I just posted the link here. It's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. I do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime, even a year from now. You can go back and watch the entire class. So the class is on sale, $60, regularly $130. And then we have a new class starting up Saturday, March 19th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. This is a 4-hour online course. We'll do 2 consecutive Saturdays, Saturday, March 19th and 26th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is $25. We'll do a profiles of over 100 different women of African descent all throughout history, whether we talk about in antiquity, African queens, deities, scientists, mathematicians, freedom fighters, civil rights leaders, athletes, etc. That's Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. We know March is Women's History Month, so this is a fantastic online class that I will be teaching also. Okay, we'll post a link here so you can register for Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. As soon as you register, there's bonus content that you can start watching also. All right. St. Patrick's Day, we'll probably talk about that on Thursday's show because Thursday is St. Patrick's Day. Okay. Let's go back to the story here. So right before the break, we were talking about this story out of North Carolina, Goldston, North Carolina, and a mock slave auction that took place at J.S. Waters School recently. It's a K through 8 school. If we look at this piece here from the News and Observer, an apology, Chatham District updates policies after mock slave auction at North Carolina school. We're going to clip 2 in just a second, Shakita, from ABC Channel 11. We're going to clip 2 in just a minute. Okay, so if we look at this, article here, Chatham School Superintendent Dr. Anthony Jackson apologized on Monday, March 14th, for a mock slave auction that took place at a local school and ordered immediate action to prevent similar activities from happening in the future. The school board unanimously approved changes to its policies for dealing with acts of racism after reports surfaced of Black students being sold at a mock slave auction. After reports surfaced of Black students being sold at a mock slave auction at J.S. Waters School in Goldston, North Carolina. The board also will review the student code of conduct and discipline policies, Superintendent Dr. Anthony Jackson said. He said actions such as these, they just don't reflect who we are as a school system. And I say unapologetically, will not be tolerated in the school system. Now, as I said before the break, he's African-American. Large crowds attended the school board meeting Monday, March 14th, 2022, to demand that the district take steps to address the situation. To demand that the district take steps to address the situation. Crowds of parents, students, and activists packed the meeting in support of public speaking, of people speaking out against the racist incident. The Chatham County school system has received national attention since parent Ashley Palmer, who's white, and she has a biracial son, since parent Ashley Palmer charged in social media that her son experienced a slave auction of Black students. Let's go to clip number 2 from ABC Channel 11. Shakita, you're going to hear Ashley Palmer also. Let's go to this clip.
And Steve, it was one group that organized that press conference that took place just before the school board meeting got underway behind me, but about 150 people from all over the community showed up, members of clergy, activists, some students from Chatham County schools, all speaking at this press conference, saying a resounding message, enough is enough, really expressing their indignation with what happened at J.S. Waters School this month. Ashley Palmer says her 14-year-old biracial son and his friend were targeted in a mock slave auction at baseball practice. She says the white students who carried it out were suspended from school for 1 day. Superintendent Dr. Anthony Jackson sent a letter to all Chatham County families, vaguely addressing that and other recent incidents, saying racist behavior will not be tolerated. But families and community leaders out here today are demanding more, saying these types of events are not new, that Black and other students of color have been going to school in fear of violence or being dehumanized for too long. The school board tonight getting a list of 8 recommendations, and Palmer says a big one for her is that they revise the current code of conduct.
Racist acts shouldn't be disciplined on the same level as someone pulling another student's hair with a 1-day suspension. It should have its own designation, reportable at the county level, and handled with the significant consequences it deserves. No child should face abuse by their peers and staff.
Now, Palmer says that so far, Dr. Jackson and other school administrators have been supportive emotionally and with their words. But tonight, she and other members of this community say they want to see action, some tangible solutions. We are going to continue following this throughout the evening. You can look for another report at 11 o'clock. For now, we are live in Pittsburgh. Andrea Blanford, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
All right. Great reporting from Andrea there for ABC Channel 11. Okay, so if we go back to this piece here, I know we're coming up on a break. And let me know if we have any callers. Shakita, the calling number is 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk about Jussie Smollett as well. So the Chatham County school system has received national attention since parent Ashley Palmer, who you just heard in that clip, charged in social media that her son experienced a slave auction of Black students. She said, I want to do something that needs to be done publicly. Now, Dr. Anthony Jackson, superintendent, went on to say, I want to do something that needs to be done publicly. I want to offer an apology to every single student who has ever felt unsafe while in our care, to every student who has ever felt demeaned, disrespected, or marginalized because of their race, ethnicity, gender, religion, or disability. Okay. Now, there was one of the things that came out at the school board meeting, and I think it's in the piece from ABC Channel 11. They talked about there was pent-up anger. There was pent-up anger that a lot of the parents and students had. And this came out also. Let me pull this up here. So this story from ABC Channel 11 from March 14th was updated after the school board meeting took place. So this story was last updated. The story was last updated at 11:44 p.m. On Monday, March 14th. So if we look at this here, it's down in, let me see, this is not a new, okay, let me go back here. Also, they have some of the social media posts from some of the reporters for ABC who were there as well. So if we look at this, they came expressing concerns and emotions that had been pent up for a long time. All right, days after an uproar ignited over the alleged mock slave auction at Chatham County K-8 school, dozens of parents and students flooded the school board meeting Monday night, March 14th, to sound off to district leaders. They came expressing concerns and emotions. They came expressing concerns and emotions that had been pent up for a long time. There was a sense that the incident, and let me increase the size of this here. There was a sense that the incident at the J.S. Waters School was just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. I do not want racism to be in our schools, said one Chatham Elementary school boy to the board. Now, the school is K-8, okay? J.S. Waters School in Goldston, North Carolina is K-8. He was one in the standing room only crowd in Pittsburgh. They detailed what many here called a deep-seated culture of racist abuse at Chatham County schools. A deep-seated culture of racist abuse at Chatham County schools. This is not a new problem. This is not a black problem. This is a white problem. This is a white problem that our ancestors created and we have inherited, said one mother. Before the crowd went inside, parents and activists gathered outside the old courthouse, including Ashley Palmer. Her 14-year-old son is one of two biracial boys she says was targeted by white classmates in a mock slave auction at baseball practice at school. Ashley Palmer and the others are dissatisfied with the punishments for the students behind it. She said racist acts should be disciplined on the same level as should not be disciplined on the same level as someone pulling another student's hair with a one-day suspension. Okay, so read the rest of this article here from ABC Channel 11 out of North Carolina. Chatham County School Board okays reviews after alleged racism incidents. All right, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about Jussie Smollett being released from jail. As well, you listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. How's everybody doing? Okay, share this broadcasting on social media platforms. If you like this type of information, you want to support the African History Network, if you appreciate the type of information that I've been putting out for the past 12 years and covering for the past 12 years, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN show, because this stuff don't happen on its own. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, pay for all these services I have to use to broadcast these shows and do the research. Okay, back from break in 4 minutes. 3 minutes now. Be sure to register for the online class that we have this weekend, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Classes on sale, $60 regularly, $100. I'm sure $60 regularly, $130. Okay, stand by. I gotta get that Jussie Smollett story. Do we have a clip here? Oh, what the hell is this? Back from break in 1 minute. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation and Future Radio. All right. I want to go to this story here dealing with Jussie Smollett as well. Shakita, we're going to that clip I just sent you from ABC Channel 7. Before we go to that, I want to remind you, you can register for the online classes I teach on the weekend on Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We do it thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. The class is on sale $60, regularly $130. And I just posted the link here for it as well. Okay, so we got the news today that Jussie Smollett was being released from jail. Okay, and NBC News has this piece, also ABC Channel 7. Jussie Smollett freed from jail pending appeal court orders. Now, we remember we covered it here on this story. He was sentenced to 30 months probation. The first 150 days he had to do in Cook County Jail. There was outrage over that. Even I said, first of all, I said I think he committed the crime. I think he did it, but he didn't deserve to go to jail over it. Nobody. The only person hurt was him. Okay. Judge James Lynn seemed to have it in for Jussie Smollett. We broke that down here on this show. I also talked about the fact that Judge James Lynn was removed from about 25 sex crimes cases as well. If you watched our broadcast from Sunday, our Sunday show, March, and I've been re-airing that on our social media platforms, Sunday, March 13th. We also dealt with how Judge James Lynn, very strangely, has been bounced from over 25 sex crimes cases as well. Okay. But Empire actor Jussie Smollett was ordered released from jail Wednesday, March 16th, after a court agreed to stay the sentence a judge handed down last week. After a court agreed to stay the sentence, the judge handed down last week, Judge James Lynn, according to court documents. Now, Jussie Smollett was sentenced to 150 days in jail and probation after he was convicted of falsely reporting to police that he was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack in 2019. A court granted a motion on Wednesday, March 16th, that he be allowed to be freed on bond pending an appeal. Now, the motion asked that the sentence be stayed or put on hold. Jussie Smollett walked out of jail around 8 p.m. local time wearing a mask. He got into a waiting vehicle and did not answer any questions. Let's go to this clip from Channel 7, ABC Chicago, Shakita. Okay.
Released from jail pending the appeal of his conviction. That order allowing Smollett to sign a $150,000 recognizance bond, which does not require him to post any money. This all happening nearly a week after Judge James Lynn last Thursday ordered the actor to spend the first 150 days of his 30-month probation behind bars here in the jail. This despite several letters written by social justice organizations to the judge touting Smollett's charity and humanitarian work. His attorneys had argued to the appeals court that Smollett would have completed that jail sentence well before the appeal of his conviction was decided. Now, according to jail officials, Smollett in the past week has not been in general population. He's been held in his own cell, which is monitored by security cameras and manned by a guard who has eyes on him at all times. We are expecting Smollett's attorney and one of his siblings to address the media within the hour, and then the actor again sometime tonight will be released. Exactly what time is somewhat unclear. From experience, it can take at least a couple of hours from the time the jail gets the order to process an inmate out of the jail. We're live outside the Cook County Jail. Eric Hong, ABC 7. Eyewitness News.
Eric, you've many times over your reporting years. Can you tell our viewers who are watching us streaming, he will have to come out behind that fence behind you, right? Can you kind of explain where you are and how this process works that way?
Right. Jussie Smollett, we are told, will go through the process just like any inmate who is being released from the jail. We're at 27th in California, and that's the exit that anyone who is processed out of the jail, walks out of the jail, has to come out. We've got a rather large contingent, if we can show you here, of cameras that are waiting for him to come out. And you see a podium there as well, where he expects his attorney and his brother, Joe Quee, to speak to the media at 7:30. And then we're told that perhaps between 7:30 and 8:30, Smollett could walk out, but as we know, right. These things are kind of fluid here at the jail. It can take a little bit longer than we anticipate sometimes for someone to walk out and be processed out of the facility.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that was before Jussie was released. He was released right around 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And on tomorrow's show, I'll share some of the comments that his attorneys had as well. Okay, so check this out. ABC Channel 7 Chicago, Jussie Smollett released from county jail. Appeal still pending. And then also NBC News has a article on this as well. Jussie Smollett freed from jail pending appeal court orders. All right. So this is still somewhat of a developing story as well. And you know, we talked about Judge James Lynn. Judge James Lynn. There was a good article from meaww.com, that deals with Judge James Lynn, the judge that sentenced Jussie Smollett. And the name of this article is "Who is James Lynn?" Okay, who is James Lynn? And one of the things that it talks about, it deals with his background, but it deals with the fact that he was removed from at least 25 sex crimes cases, the judge. All right. And it's a procedure that attorneys are used to get the judge removed from the cases. But if you look at this here, it's on page 4 of this article. No, it's page 5, I think. Page 5. Who was the judge in Jussie Smollett's sentencing? And once reportedly a veteran, the Cook County judge had conducted more bench trials for sex cases than any judge in Cook County. However, in 2011, he attracted a lot of controversy after reversing a jury's verdict in a sexual assault case of 3 sisters by a man named Joseph Fultz, Fultz, and convincing him of a far less serious sex charge. Okay, so then it goes on to deal with, on page 7, it deals with how he was, Judge James Lynn was bounced from at least 25 sex cases, okay, which is about 4 times more than the next closest judge, according to an unprecedented analysis of criminal court data. All right. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a few more minutes. We'll keep broadcasting. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. You can support us, $ the AHN Show, through Cash App, PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Right now, scratch your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Okay, so check this out. I talked about this on our Sunday show, dealing with Judge James Lynn, because there's something strange going on with the judge. It's something really strange, regardless of what you think about Jussie Smollett. I broke this down Sunday because we're on for 2 hours on Sunday. There's something really strange going on with him. There's a hold on, where is it? Just a second, let me look at this here. So this is from meaww.com, and then there was, okay, we talked about the article dealing with Kim Fox. All right, but substitution of judge. Washington Times has an article that gives some background information on this. There's a procedure, SOJ. That stands for substitution of judge. Okay, and in less than 2 years following his controversial handling of the Fultz case, Judge James Lynn was bounced from at least 25 sex cases using substitution of judges, SOJs, about 4 times more than the next closest judge, according to an unprecedented analysis of criminal court data, the report stated. It has been said that Judge James Lynn has not overseen a sex crimes case since November 2013. Also, recently, one of the victims of the 2011 case said of Judge James Lynn that, quote, he quote, didn't really think about the emotional damages that Fultz left on me or my sisters, or the full nature of how sick he was, end quote, she added. She went on to say, and it's not because of the case, it's because most of the time people don't care about people that look like me or that have my kind of background. That's why so many people take the law into their own hands, end quote. Read this piece here. Deals with who is Judge James Lynn. Judge says Jussie Smollett faked attack to make himself famous. Very interesting about this judge. I'm wondering if some disciplinary actions are going to be taken against Judge James Lynn after the stunt he pulled and how he sentenced Jussie Smollett. Well, two things: sending him to jail for 150 days, and nobody was hurt. It wasn't like Jussie Smollett beat up somebody else. One, two, the way he berated him also. All right. Now, let's see here. This story here, okay, we're going to try to squeeze this in. We'll talk about this some more on tomorrow's show. I watched it was actually three things at the White House I watched today. One press conference Joe Biden gave, I think that was dealing with the Violence Against Women's Act. But also I watched a little bit of the White House press briefing, Jen Psaki, White House press secretary. But the one that I was really waiting for and watched today was dealing with HBCUs. And Vice President Kamala Harris spoke at this one dealing with HBCUs today. Now, a lot of the black social media trolls are not going to tell you about this because they don't want you to know about stuff like this. Okay. Vice President Harris boosts HBCU funding following bomb threats. How many people heard about this today? And heard about the press conference. At least 36 HBCUs face bomb threats in recent months. And can I stop this? Can we stop it from playing? Thank you. Vice President Kamala Harris is set to announce that historically black colleges and universities will be eligible for new grant funding following a series of bomb threats made against them. It's called the Project School Emergency Response to Violence, SERV, okay, SERV. The Project School Emergency Response to Violence program under the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, is intended to enhance campus security and provide mental health services, provide mental health resources by providing short-term immediate funding for institutions that have experienced a violent or traumatic incident. Because even though no bombs were found, there are 36 bomb threats so far against HBCUs. A lot of these were during the month of February, African American History Month. And some of them happened the first day of Black History Month, okay? Even though no bombs were found, this still causes stress. This still causes trauma to students and staff and faculty and professors on the campus, and also the parents of those students that are at these schools, and they hear about a bomb threat on TV, okay, or hear about a bomb threat on the radio, and their child is at one of these HBCUs. That causes stress, that causes fear, that causes trauma. Vice President Kamala Harris, let me see here, back up here. Okay. Vice President Kamala Harris will make clear that every American should be able to learn, work, worship, and gather without fear. A White House official told ABC News the announcement will be made at the White House on Wednesday, March 16th, 3 p.m. HBCUs targeted by the threats could receive grants ranging from $50,000 to $150,000 per campus, and will be determined based on specific needs. And once again, we know no bombs were found, but that doesn't mean trauma was not inflicted. That doesn't mean fear. And we know that, they want to persevere. And I saw some statements from presidents of HBCUs, and they said, we're not going to be deterred. We're going to persevere. That's true. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that trauma is still not inflicted. That doesn't mean that mental health services are not needed and things like this, and coping with these white supremacist attacks. Okay. Luckily, some people who the FBI believes are the culprits, luckily they've been caught and they've been investigated. There's a, let me see here. Which one is that? Just a second. I want to go to the clip from the White House. Let me pull this up just a minute here. That's from White House's YouTube channel. Okay, let me go back to this article here. Just so I'll pull this up. The campuses of at least 36 HBCUs and other colleges have been targeted by threats, and at least 18 of these colleges and universities were targeted on February 1st alone, the first day of Black History Month. At least 18 of these colleges and universities were targeted in one day. Institutions went into lockdown or evacuated the campus while local law enforcement agencies investigated the threats. Okay, let me see if I can find this. Institutions went into lockdown or evacuated the campus while local law enforcement agencies investigated threats. Quote, threats to the education and well-being of Black Americans and HBCUs are an unfortunate part of American history, the press release read. The bomb threats that we witnessed in January, each week in February, Black History Month, and this month are reminiscent of the attempts during the Civil Rights era to intimidate and provoke fear in Black Americans. These threats came as hate crimes against African Americans are on the rise, increasing by nearly 50% between 2019 and 2020, according to the FBI. Now, there's a piece from there's a at whitehouse.gov, they have a fact sheet also. Let me pull this up here. Hold on. There's a fact sheet. Biden-Harris administration announces resources for HBCUs that have recently experienced bomb threats. Biden-Harris administration announces resources for historically Black colleges and universities that have recently experienced bomb threats. This is from March 16th, 2022. Okay, so it breaks down in the last 3 months, more than a third of the country's historically Black colleges and universities have received bomb threats. While thankfully no explosive devices were found, on these campuses, significant and lasting damage has been done by threatening the safety and security of the students, faculty, and staff at these institutions. As a result of these threats, learning has been disrupted, critical resources have been diverted to emergency response, and there has been an increased burden on already overwhelmed campus mental health systems. There has been an increased burden on already overwhelmed campus mental health systems. HBCU students already experience negative impacts from the pandemic, such as lingering effects of illness, trauma, and basic needs insecurities, are now experiencing additional stress and anxiety because of these bomb threats that can negatively affect their academic success. Let me see here. I want to go to the piece from whitehouse.gov. I mean, from I got to go into, hold on, I need to go in to find this here. Okay, hold on, let me find this one. This was from today. Okay, this is it right here. Vice President Harris delivers remarks on making communities safer, including the campuses of HBCUs. Let me pull this up here. Okay, where are we?
Our administration, whom you've heard from, administration joined today by extraordinary national leaders, members of Congress, members of our administration, whom you've heard from, law enforcement officials, educators, students, and other community leaders. And we gather united against violence and against intimidation. 1 year ago today in Atlanta, 8 people were killed in a horrific act of violence. 6 out of the 8 were of Asian descent, 7 were women. And these shootings took place in businesses owned by Asian Americans. These acts were acts of terror that brought terror to the AA and NHPI community in Atlanta and to every community across our country when we witnessed the violence and the hate that was displayed that day. And they occurred in the midst of a dramatic increase in violence and discrimination against the AA and NHPI community. Over the past year, our administration has taken action to protect our AA and NHPI communities. Last May, President Biden signed into law the bipartisan COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. That law provides resources and training for state and local law enforcement to accurately identify and report hate crime, and addresses language and cultural barriers that often make it difficult for communities to report such crimes against them. Today, 1 year after the attack, we are reminded of the terrible cost of violence, xenophobia, and hate. Every American should be able to learn, work, worship, and gather without fear. It is our duty to do everything we can to protect all our communities. A harm against any one of our communities is a harm against all of us. So our work continues. And as has been described since the beginning of the year, more than 80 anonymous bomb threats have been made against dozens of our HBCUs, against historically Black churches, against synagogues, and other faith-based and academic institutions. These threats have been made in phone calls and instant messages and emails and online posts. These threats have brought fear and anxiety to places of peace, as has been mentioned, to sanctuaries, to schools where young people live and learn, to houses of worship where so many of us seek solace. They have caused classes to be canceled, dorms to be locked down, and communities of faith to be kept apart. Over the past few months, our administration has been in constant communication with the leadership of these institutions. And we have held numerous briefings, trainings, and stakeholder calls to gather and to share information. And as Attorney General Merrick Garland outlined, the Department of Justice has taken action to confront these attacks. Today, I will share two new steps our administration is taking to ensure that our communities are protected and that they are supported. Today, we are announcing that HBCUs that have received threats that significantly disrupt the learning environment are eligible for grant funding through our Department of Education and the leadership of Secretary Cardona. These short-term grants, known as Project Serve grants, can be used to hire more mental health professionals, to enhance campus security, and to provide specialized training to security staff. And again, they will only be given to schools that have received threats that significantly impact the learning environment. In addition, our administration is releasing a resource guide for colleges and universities with detailed information on detecting, preventing, and recovering from threats and acts of violence. And we will continue to work together with schools and houses of worship and all other impacted institutions to ensure safety and security. Today, our administration is sending a very clear message. This intimidation will not stand, and we will not be intimidated. We will do everything in our power to protect all our communities from violence and from hate. We are all in this together, and we must stand together. Thank you all, and take care. Thank you all.
Okay, so that was from today. Hopefully ABC News will update their story because the story is from 11:30 a.m. today, which was a few hours before the press conference took place. So hopefully they'll update this story because the press conference took place is about 3 p.m. Today. So that White House it's on the White House's YouTube channel, so you can watch the full press conference, about 20 minutes. Attorney General Merrick Garland spoke as well. You can read this piece here at whitehouse.gov. Fact sheet: Biden-Harris administration announces resources for historically Black colleges and universities that have recently experienced bomb threats. Now, just keep in mind, this is on top of HBCUs getting $5.8 billion in 2021 from the Biden-Harris administration. Y'all do know that, right? I know a lot of these Simple Simon ass people on social media that run with conspiracy theories, and then when the conspiracy theories debunked, they don't go back and tell you they lied to you. I know they're not sharing this with you, but we talked about it here on this show once again because we actually deal with like factual information. And you can look at the what is that called? It's from December 17th, 2021. It's this one right here, because we were going to talk about it. We were going to talk about HBCUs Friday when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, but we ran out of time. And he talked about it on, I think it was Monday's show. I think he talked about it Monday, March 14th. He talked about that BS story that Charles Blow had on the Black News Channel, dealing with HBCUs and funding. This right here. So you all know about this, right? From December 17th, 2021. Has anybody read this? Anybody watching? Have y'all read this from whitehouse.gov? Because I've showed it to you here before on the show. The Biden-Harris administration's historic investments and support for historically Black colleges and universities. They go through, make a long story short, they go through, the HBCUs got $5.8 billion in 1 year from the Biden-Harris administration, which is a record amount of funding for HBCUs in 1 year. Contrary to the nonsense floating around on social media, because people don't want to do research. Since January 2021, the Biden-Harris administration has delivered a historic $5.8 billion cumulative investment in and support for HBCUs. Okay. Now that doesn't, and then I don't even think this includes what's in the White House budget, the $6 trillion White House budget, because yeah, that doesn't include, let me see, hold on. Okay, $3.7 billion relief funding this year, for $3.7 billion from the American Rescue Plan. That doesn't, there's about $800 million in the White House budget that was allocated for HBCUs. This doesn't include that. So the American Rescue Plan, $3.7 billion. President Biden's American Rescue Plan, the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for, and other pandemic relief, has provided nearly $3.7 billion in relief funding for HBCUs this year alone. They're talking about 2021, because this report is from December 17th, 2021. Okay, so they're just looking at 2021. $3.7 billion for HBCUs in 2021. And it was 1.6 billion. I thought it was 1.6 billion for the American Rescue Plan, but American Rescue Plan and other COVID funding, 3.7 billion. These emergency grants were funded directly to HBCUs from the Department of Education and have helped HBCUs and their students mitigate the negative impact of the pandemic on students' additional attainment. Now, this is separate from the additional grants that were announced today. This 5.8 billion is separate from the grants that were announced today. They have helped institutions support students' ability to meet basic needs, target resources to students with the greatest needs, support campus operations, staffing, teaching, etc. There are 103 HBCUs. Then $1.6 billion in debt relief just in 2021. The Department of Education discharged approximately $1.6 billion in, we can't increase the size of that. Can you make it larger? All right. Well, I need to make it that large now. Okay. Back up. Okay, so 5.8 billion. Now, keep in mind, the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan was signed into law in March of 2021. No Republicans in the House of Representatives or the Senate voted for the bill, even though you have some Republicans talking about how much good the bill is doing. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the bill. The vote in the Senate was 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. Who was the tie-breaking vote so that bill became law? Vice President Kamala Harris. This is how elections have consequences, okay? This is the result of actually voting. The $46.5 billion in rental assistance for renters and landlords, okay, that was disseminated to help keep people in their homes, especially a lot of African Americans during COVID, that was part of this bill. Another round of PPP loans for small businesses. And there were numerous stories that I saw of African Americans who took either they either took money that they got because it was $1,400 in stimulus checks, and you got more for children, things like this. There's a lot of African Americans took that money to start businesses. Some of them applied for PPP loans. There's another round of PPP loans that help businesses stay open, keep staff employed, all that stuff. That was part of this bill. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the bill. There was funding for schools, so schools could pay for ventilation, better ventilation for schools, okay? Pay for increased staff because they're going to have smaller classrooms. So now over 90% of the schools are open. That was in this bill that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for. So you had $3.7 billion in relief funding for HBCUs. Then you had $1.6 billion. The Department of Education discharged approximately $1.6 billion of debt from loans provided to HBCUs for capital improvements through the department's HBCU capital financing program. The action resulted in debt relief to 45 HBCUs, 13 public institutions, and 32 private institutions earlier this year, earlier 2021. Discharging these debts has enabled these institutions to focus resources on support students, faculty, and staff while recovering from the pandemic. Then there was $500 million in grant funding in July and August of 2021. In July and August 2021, the Department of Education awarded more than $500 million in grant funding for HBCUs for academic capacity building and fiscal stability. Okay, so read the rest of this here. Financial support for HBCUs, Build Back Better provides. Build Back Better didn't pass yet. They're going to break it up. It's suspected that they're going to break it up into smaller bills and get it passed that way. Okay. And MSIs are minority serving institutions. There are over 600 MSIs. Because there's 103 HBCUs, there are 411 HSIs, Hispanic serving institutions. MSIs is like over 600 MSIs. MSIs are not HBCUs. HBCUs are part of MSIs. Okay, so read the rest of this also. So the grants announced today are separate from the $5.8 billion that HBCUs got in 2021. All right. So, but this is example how elections have consequences. Let me see. Do we have it up? Do we have it in here? I think I have a fact sheet on that. I want to see if I can put my hands on it quickly. March 11, 20. Okay, so that's after it passed. People different. Department of Education. So if we just look at this Quick, then I have to get out of here. A lot of work to do. So if we just look at this here quickly, this is from March 11th, 2022. This is dealing with the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for. How the American Rescue Plan is keeping America's schools open safely, combating learning loss, and addressing student mental health. Because it talks about the funding that's in it. 1 year ago today, President Joe Biden signed the American Rescue Plan Act into law. This must have been, was this updated on March 11th? Yeah, so this was updated. Yeah, so we just had the anniversary, the 1 year anniversary of the signing of the American Rescue Plan. It was signed March 11th, 2021. Right. So it passed early March. It passed the House and the Senate early March, and it was signed in the law March 11th, 2021. President Joe Biden signed the American Rescue Plan Act into law, an unprecedented $1.9 trillion package of emergency assistance measures. The ARP, American Rescue Plan, provides a historic investment in America's preschool, through 12th grade schools in response to the COVID-19 pandemic to keep schools safely open. Now, what I find interesting is that you had all these Republicans around the country who were against wearing masks in school, who were talking about open schools, like they were outside of a Mervyn's. If you remember the old Mervyn's commercial, the old department store, open. They're talking about open schools. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the funding to be able to open the schools. Don't you find that strange? They were against the mask, against vaccination requirements, all this stuff. There was funding in here so schools could pay for better ventilation, so schools could hire more staff and more teachers, so you can have smaller classrooms so students could spread out more, things like this. So schools could open back up and stay open. And no Republicans voted for it. These funds include $122 billion for P through 12 schools in elementary and secondary school emergency relief. ARP also dedicated an additional $8 billion to states and school districts to meet the needs of certain student populations, including over $3 billion for students with disabilities and $800 million for children and youth experiencing homelessness. Notice you don't hear a whole lot of Republicans talking about homelessness, and addressing the needs of like homeless children who go to school and maybe live in shelters or things like this. ARP, American Rescue Plan, not to be confused with AARP, okay, has already had a significant impact on schools across the country. Over the last year, states, school districts, and schools have used these funds to safely reopen and sustain in-person instruction, combat learning loss, and address students' mental health needs. No Republicans voted for this, even though Republicans were saying open the schools. None of them in the House or the Senate voted for the bill. In his State of the Union address last week, President Joe Biden called on schools to hire more teachers, urged the American people to sign up to be tutors and mentors, and as part of his unity agenda, encouraged the country to come together to address child mental health. ARP funds are supporting this agenda in several ways, and they go through and break down how the funding from the American Rescue Plan signed March 11th, 2021 is going to help schools, which ultimately helps children, their parents. Schools have gone from 46% open before the American Rescue Plan to 99% safe and open today. Before the American Rescue Plan was signed into law, just 46% of America's P through 12 schools were open for full-time in-person learning. Today, over 99% of P through 12 schools are open for full-time in-person instruction. ARP led to record growth in local education jobs that are critical to meeting students' academic and mental health needs. Although there is more work to do to address long-standing educator shortages and return to pre-pandemic levels, the American Rescue Plan has led to record jobs growth in the education sector. With the help of ARP funding, local governments added more than 279,000 education jobs in 2021. Why wouldn't Republicans want to support something like that? They talk about jobs, economy, all they talk about education. They want parents to have a say in what's taught in school, but they don't want to fund opening the schools up. Pay attention to this, because in the 2022 midterm elections, Republicans are going to run on in 2022 midterm elections, Republicans are going to run on anti-critical race theory laws, letting parents have more of a say in what's taught in school, but they didn't want to fund being able to open schools back up. They didn't want to fund being able to hire more teachers to teach the children in the schools, so you can have smaller classrooms, so the children could be spread out more. With the help of the American Rescue Plan funding, local governments added more than 279,000 education jobs in 2021. The best calendar year of jobs growth since records began in 1956 for education jobs, and added an additional nearly 46,000 jobs in the first 2 months of 2022. Schools have already seen a 65% increase in social workers and a 17% increase in counselors relative to before the pandemic. Analysis of school district plans shows overwhelming majority of funds are being used for priorities like teachers, counselors, academic recovery, mental health, and health and safety measures like ventilation improvements. Isn't it strange no Republicans voted for this bill? There's like 212 Republicans in the House. None of them voted for it. There's 50 in the Senate. None of them voted for this bill. Future Ed and Education think tank at Georgetown University's McCourt School of Public Policy analyzed data on a representative sample of over 3,000 school districts' plans covering 55% of ARP funds. This analysis showed nearly 60% of funds are being used to invest in staffing, both retaining current staff and expanding professional development opportunities, as well as recruiting, hiring, and training of new teachers, school staff and mental health professionals to increase school capacity and meet the academic and mental health needs of students. As crazy as Republicans are, don't you find it strange they don't talk about funding mental health? As crazy and as you got some real lunatics, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Louis Gohmert, you got Jim Jordan. Okay, as crazy as they are, don't you find it strange that they really don't talk about funding mental health? Combat learning loss through student support programs, such as evidence-based tutoring, expanded after-school and summer learning and enrichment programs, and the purchase of millions of new textbooks and learning materials. Supporting the physical and mental health of students and educators. Now, for people, for a party that talks about, now just pay attention to this. For a party that talks about the parents' rights to get involved in what is taught in the schools, and for a party that talks about these anti-critical race theory laws, banning books in schools, shutting down, curtailing or suppressing what's being taught about the history of slavery and racism and Jim Crow era civil rights movement, things like this in schools to varying degrees, right? Don't you find it strange none of them voted for this bill that's going to help schools and teachers and students and help fund all this? I mean, don't you find it strange that the Republicans said open the schools, open the schools, open the schools, but didn't want to fund opening the schools? I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but I sure as hell ain't stupid. This is the type of stuff I study. I'm neither Democrat nor Republican. I definitely ain't stupid, though. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Read the rest of this here. I don't have time to go through all of it. Also, $700 million is coming to Detroit public schools. They're going to use that to renovate 5 schools that are desperately in need of renovation. I don't know how many people heard about this. This is coming from the Biden-Harris administration. Let me see if we can pull something up on this quickly. So this is the Associated Press plan to look at. We have something. See if we can pull up something more recently. This is from February 15th. And Dr. Nikolai Viti has talked about this also. But let me see. 700 million. Let's look at this from Fox 2 Detroit. This is from February 15th, 2022, Fox 2 Detroit, local Fox affiliate here in Detroit. Detroit Public Schools to invest $700 million to update buildings. February 15, 2022. Many schools in the Detroit Public Schools Community District will be upgraded thanks to a $700 million investment announced Tuesday. When you look at the overall state of the school buildings, they're not where they should be for children or employees, says Detroit Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Nikolai Viti. We're excited to announce $700 million infrastructure investment that will benefit over 80% of the schools already in the district. That will benefit over 80% of the schools already in the district. The money which comes from COVID-19 relief funding will also go toward construction of some new buildings. It's a multifaceted plan. On the one hand, you're going to see new school building. So we're proposing a new building for Cody High School, a new building for Pershing High School. There's also a new building proposed for Paul Robeson and Malcolm X Academy here in Detroit. The district hopes the plan will bring back students who have left district schools. We know there are about 30,000 students, actually probably more, who live in the city of Detroit and do not attend school at Detroit Public Schools Community District. We want to get to a point where Detroiters think again about sending their kids to the neighborhood schools, and that's why we are accelerating the revitalization of the city and of the district. School members are excited. School board members are excited about the investment. Sherry Gay Dagnago, who I know used to be a state representative here, state of Michigan. I've been on the panel discussion with her before. Sherry Gay Dagnago, with Facebook friends also, she said, "I'm glad we are looking at innovation with respect to our school buildings. I'm really looking at ways that we can advance and improve that." She's a Detroit school board member at large. Okay, so you have this one. There's going to be more coming out about this, right? This is money coming from the Biden-Harris administration from COVID-19 funding. Now, there was a now this is real money. Okay, this is real money. This is how elections have consequences. This is understanding how who you vote for impacts quality of life, impacts the economy, all of this stuff. This deals with policy. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Let me look at the article here from the Associated Press for just a second here. Hold on. Okay. Associated Press has a piece on this as well. Plan to look at future of school building use in Detroit. This is February 15th, 2022. Then there are other stories on this also. I saw it when they first announced it. I saw it here locally because I live in Detroit, so I saw it here on Channel 7 WXYZ when the story broke. Here's a story from February 16th, 2022, WXYZ Channel 7. That's the news station I watch basically here. Which is weird because I've been on Fox 2 a couple times years ago. I've been on Fox 2. I've been on WDIV also, Channel 4. I don't think I've ever been on Channel 7. May have been on Channel 7. I can't remember. $700 million plan aims to improve Detroit school buildings. Stuff is falling apart. That's true. Stuff is falling apart in a lot of these schools. Superintendent says inequality reflected in quality of facilities. Inequality affected in quality of facilities. Now, this is showing how bills in the House of Representatives and the Senate impact investment down at the local level, at your local high school. The state's largest school district, the state of Michigan's largest school district, plans to spend hundreds of millions of dollars improving its buildings, and soon it will want community feedback. Community feedback on exactly how to do that, different investments that can be made, in the schools, etc. If the Detroit Public Schools Community District were to restore all their buildings to their original conditions, the superintendent says it would take $2 billion. The immediate plan is to work with the $700 million from the federal government. Start with that. Okay. I'm very excited about this. Okay, Dr. Nikolai Vitti. That's Dr. Nikolai Vitti. So the $700 million one-time funding from the Biden administration will be used to help. Of that, $281 million will go to completely rebuilding 5 schools, including Cody, Karstens at Go Lightly, vocational school, Go Lightly, Phoenix, Pershing High School, and Paul Robeson, Malcolm X Academy, Marshall. Denise Johnson is a Pershing alumnus. Her son, Kellen Lewis, is a freshman. It's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, stuff falling apart, he said. Denise Johnson said they definitely would appreciate that, just a little bit more inviting environment for the kids. The 5th school slated to be rebuilt is Paul Robeson Malcolm X Academy. Okay, so then they have, $281 million here. Okay, answering this call is the district's facility master, which calls for $296 million in renovations, with $82 million to build additions onto existing schools. Okay, so you can check this out. This is real money right here. But this is understanding policy, how policy impacts quality of life, conditions, funding for schools. Okay, check this out from WXYZ Channel 7. All right. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. So donate $5, 10, 15, 25, 50, 100, whatever it is. Definitely helps. It helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, pay for the services that I use also to broadcast the show and do research. You can still register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. On Sundays, it is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So the class is on sale $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. You can join us in class. We do a live text chat. You can join us in class. You can ask questions in class through a live text chat. Okay, you can see me. I can't see you. And when you click on the link there, it takes you right here. Just click on enroll. As soon as you enroll, you can start watching the content. You can join us in class this weekend. And then we have a new class starting up. So that one is 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a new class starting up Saturday, 12 noon, 2 p.m., March 19th and 26th, which is Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. This class is $25, and we'll deal with over 100 different African women of all different time periods. Everyone from African queens in antiquity to deities to freedom fighters, politicians, doctors, scientists, entertainers, artists, all different aspects. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. Okay, so this will be Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Saturday, March 26th and March 19th. Okay, brand new online course. I taught this back in, last time I taught this was like 2017, this online class, and it's greatly expanded since then. We know March is Women's History Month, so teaching this for the month of March. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. All right, and you can register for it here. Then also at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we have the information on our on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. All right, look, I have to get out of here. Remember, the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.